for you. Let me just set up my tripod here. So this is at night. All right, so this is what I've been working on the last few months. I know you're used to seeing me sketch, but I also make some stuff. We got some friends visiting as well. I'm gonna let them go through the displays, and then I will uh, give you guys a little bit of information here on what I have been doing. Sorry, Claire, I'm just doing a live. Anyhow, so like I said, you might be used to me sketching. It's late. Let's see, it's 10:30 p.m. here in Salt Lake City. But basically, this project came from um, kind of a fun question. What can I do with some bottles? If I have empty bottles and I want to cut them, what could I do with them? So it kind of started with me creating vessels, artifacts, if you will. And I'll show you those in just a sec. And eventually those kind of morphed into the lamps that you see here. All right. So you might not know this about me, but I build furniture. I do a lot of things, industrial design. And I've been missing this week, mostly this week, because I've been trying to catch up here. So I'm going to skip to the beginning now and show you guys a little bit of where this all came from. So right here in my displays it's a windy night tonight. Okay, windy night. So the display is called Vessel, or VSL, actually. And that stands for Very Salt Lake. And the idea here is that's where I'm based, Salt Lake City, Utah. And VSL kind of represents these vessels. And like I said, this is kind of where it started. I started cutting bottles, recycling these wine bottles, specifically making tops for these bottles on a lathe. Right, super time intensive process. It takes a lot of time to get the right fit, look, feel, all of that. But then at the same time, I was wondering, okay, what do I do with the tops of these bottles? You know, I cut the bottom off, turn them into this vessel. What do I do with the bottom of this vessel? And pardon me for the windy mic. You're probably getting tons of wind here. Anyhow, so I do sketch on this project. I did sketch, right? So a lot of these ideas you'll see here, this was me just kind of sketching in my kitchen at a time this summer. Tons of ideas, thumbnails, and really this is how I sketch most of the time. Okay, so I know on the channel I do like pretty stuff, whatever, but this is really just how I sketch and represent these ideas. A lot of these ideas, specifically the ones with the post-it notes, these are the ones that kind of turn into real stuff. So you'll even see that one there in a little bit. What's up, One Mighty? Yeah, it's a late stream because I had to show this at night. And then here's that cantilevered idea you guys may have seen a little bit earlier. I'll go through these and show you one by one a little bit here. Just different ideas. So I actually went and bought a 3D printer and started, because I knew I needed components. If I was going to turn these into lamps, I knew I needed components. So sketching and being able to just quickly make stuff was super, super important to the process. Okay, just being able to go from these quick doodles, you can even see some of that stuff in here, just quickly sketching it up, and then in subsequent sketches maybe thinking about the technical look, how some of these things work, where they'd fit, and so forth. So sketching, super important part of the process still. Okay, this is another crazy idea. I didn't actually end up 3D printing that, but I was trying to figure out a way to encapsulate and suspend a bottle. Ultimately decided to go with something a bit simpler. Okay, so we went with this kind of threaded component system, if you will, where, you know, even this one meant to kind of connect to a dowel. It's got screw holes. You'll see this part on another lamp here in just a sec. This was, again, just an experiment on a way to encapsulate a bottle so I could suspend it horizontally. But in any case, worked on a bunch of parts. As far as the aesthetic goes, I call this funky chunky, or chunky but funky. All right, so these are the first experiments that I did. We've got kind of this fractured box series. So both of these feature these bottles that actually fractured. They cracked due for one reason or another. So the one on the left actually fractured because I didn't quite make a good cut, and I can kind of rotate this so you can see the edge here. So it's kind of just a bad cut. So what I did is I actually dipped it in rubber and then 3D printed these components to then fit this in the frame. This is actually the second iteration of all this. This is the first iteration, and what happened is my son actually kicked this over in the kitchen. I had it just chilling there. One of them kicks it over, and that's what ended up happening. So the fracture in this one is pretty cool, where it's exposing part of the bulb, and I can kind of rotate this a little bit, hide that if I want. But I like the idea of juxtaposing the kind of the rawness of the break with the frame itself. So that was the idea there. So moving to this set here, we have the kind of chunk block tabletop series. So this was a kind of an offshoot idea where I decided to CNC into solid chunks of wood. So this is a poplar piece of wood with the cut glass, also dipped the edges in rubber, right? So these kind of fit. This is a double fixture or twin set. We've got this one actually, which was the first of these experiments, 009. I didn't want to come up with names for all these, so I actually labeled them just with numbers. So the number in the process of the experiment as they appear, okay? So not necessarily in order, but kind of gives you a sense of what's happening. So maple wood block, base, LED light, 3D printed components, reclaimed glass. And that's this one, block 09. This one is actually a little bit different because instead of taking the top of the bottle, I actually took the bottom of the bottle because it had this cool text and wanted to have that just mount and nest. Also, the treatment of the block base is a bit different than the others, whereas we got some kids here. So whereas these have more of a cavity, this one was just more like, okay, let me carve out a ring specifically for the glass and see how that works. So this one, playing with a little bit of asymmetry in the design itself. I could have made this completely symmetrical, but I decided to make that asymmetric and see how that looks. So that's the block chunk series right there. And then moving over here, we've got some tabletop lights, cantilever series here. These are kind of cousins, related. And at this point in the process, I really was just trying to experiment with different approaches, materials, and so forth. So here, even how the cable routes through the pole, these components, coming up with ideas there. You can see the threaded rod going into the glass. Looking at maybe 3D printing a rim here on the edge of the glass just to make that finished a bit, and complementing this maple base. So solid chunk maple base, you can see right there. Boom. Pretty cool. This one's actually one of my favorites, and I spent a lot of time on figuring that one out. So this one was kind of a cousin to this guy. It came a little bit later in the process, and you'll kind of see some of the inspiration on the other lights that I did. But this one actually has a concrete or cement base that is actually mounted into the wood. It's kind of hard to see here, but I've got these giant screws that go in. Now the screws actually went into the wood before the concrete was poured. Okay, so I wanted it to feel super integrated. There we've got the bottle, all these components. Like I said, sketched, 3D printed, thought of all this stuff, was able to kind of do it. We've got our louvered lamp here as well. So this one, a little bit Japanese inspired in the sense that a lot of Japanese architecture, at least traditional, has this kind of tiered look, but also wanted to introduce some constraint and flow to that. So that's where the pattern came from on that one. So just back to these tabletop series right there. Now I'm gonna move to these I have to back up for because they're so big. Kind of the grandfather clocks of the series is what I call them, or the A-frame, people have been calling them as well. So I actually started with that one on the left, and that was my first experiment. And then I quickly realized, okay, this is actually kind of top heavy. So if you look at it, the light fixtures at the top, we've got the dowel at the top, we've got these huge planes, and I wanted to make sure this thing wasn't going to topple over. I might actually go and modify this after this show is over. And I should mention this show is actually in my driveway, so that's where this is all taking place. But here we go. Right there, we've got the smaller version of the A-frame right there, and as you can see, it's related. It's a little bit of a cousin, right? So I added this concrete. I'm gonna mute this music just in case YouTube wants to freak out at me. All right, pause that for a minute. So we've got our base right there. That's actually concrete, like I said. So had to make the forms, pour that, have it integrate. Those little black pins right there actually run into the concrete. There's actually a wood structure and some mesh in there as well. So this thing is solid as a rock, you might say. So these are the two grandfathers. A little bit of Japanese, a little bit of Scandinavian mixed up in there. All good. That's my house, by the way. And then finally, we have the cantilevers. So the cantilevers are, these are twins, cousins. What's up, Googly Gotcha? These are cousins. So this was actually born out of a functional need. I wanted to provide a very stable base so I could have this cantilevered approach. Now, what's actually cool about this lamp is I can actually adjust the height of these light fixtures. And this is kind of a happy accident. If you look at the way the cable's routed, it's routed through these 3D print loops right here. 1, 2. And so by routing it through these loops, you naturally create some friction, okay, as the lamp is suspended. So I can actually push or pull. See, it's hard to do this with one hand, but I can actually pull on the cable right there, and it provides a nice friction fit. So I can adjust the height of the lamp. Super cool, super handy. You know, if this were next to a couch or something, you could lower the light and you would have, you know, a more functional height for the light if you wanted. So this one, as you can see, it's just sitting on a side table right now. But it's a mid-sized lamp and meant to be related to the bigger version right there. So that's my quick tour of what I've been up to. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry I've been MIA, but it was a lot of work. It was so much work to get all of this done. And I did it in my driveway because we have to be responsible, social distance, all of that stuff. So I'll be back tomorrow with a live stream at some point. I'm actually going live with Adobe first tomorrow morning, super early. So I'm gonna get some sleep and I'll be back and we'll draw some stuff together. But thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching. And I'll be posting some pictures of all this. So like on my portfolio site, whatever. So sorry, I'm not sure where to look on my iPhone here, but take care. Much love. Love you guys. You're the best fans. And I really appreciate your patience. Thank you. Take care. Good night. Peace and love to you. All right. Bye, guys.